Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Committee on Health, Human Services, and Homelessness. We're meeting for the purposes of hearing an agenda post for Tuesday, February 9th, 2021, 9:30 a.m. agenda. The chair would like to reiterate on the postings that we have a 2-minute testifying time frame to let all of you know that your testimonies submitted online is in the record, and the chair and the members have access to it. And the chair has gone through all those testimonies that have been submitted. For those that are doing this professionally, remember you can always rest on your testimony. Okay. Audience and members will be taking one bill out of order. We have an interpreter sign language present for this bill. So this morning we will start with HB 381 relating to fair housing, reasonable accommodations. Would like to call on the Hawaii Civil Rights Commission.
Morning, Chair. You have our written testimony and support. Would like to note that this bill, in addition to, actually, we'll stand on our written testimony.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, and just to note that we have the testimony by the Disabilities and Communication Access Board providing comments, support from
Good morning. DCAB provided comments related to this bill, and we will stand on those comments, and we are available for any questions if you have any. Thank you.
Okay. Can you guys hear me now? Can somebody thumbs up?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, so let's restart that. So we're on HB 104 relating to pools. We would like to ask if Department of Health. Okay.
Hi. Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Erin Miyazaki with the Department of Health. The department stands on our written testimony, and I'm available to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Ho'okale Corporation.
Morning, Chair. Mike Yosua on behalf of the Ho'okale Corporation. You have a written testimony, and we'll stand on the written testimony.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mark Bowman.
Yes, sir.
Okay, you're going to stand on your written testimony?
I think I would like to just say a couple of words real quick.
Okay, your time is running.
I thank you for the opportunity to voice my opinion on House Bill 104. My name is Mark Bowman, and I'm a resident of Eva Beach. I sincerely appreciate the concern for public safety related to water quality issues. Ensuring our recreational bodies of water meet or exceed Department of Health standards mandated by Section 11, TAC 54, TAC 8 of the Hawaii Administrative Rules should be a top priority. In 2018, I read the ongoing water quality studies presented by Doctors Heather Spalding and Sue Brown. At the time, the data revealed that the water quality met or exceeded all Hawaii administrative rules requirements. The data collected since that time continues to support the fact that the Waikai Lagoon is devoid of any health-related issue and exceeds all Department of Health standards. The information presented by the doctors was so convincing that my wife and I and our extended family have confidently utilized the Waikai Lagoon on an average of 4 days a week since moving to the community. We've experienced no short or long-term health problems as a result. In fact, our time spent utilizing the lagoon recreationally has not only benefited us physically, but has been a welcome mental stress release from all things COVID. I strongly support House Bill 104 and understand the issue at hand is the definition of a swimming pool from a legislative perspective. However, from my perspective, I support the sustainment, preservation, and management of all ecologically sound recreational bodies of water, or recreation areas for that matter, that meet or exceed Department of Health standards. I would like to be part of the solution to get this invaluable resource and all related activities back online for our entire community. Thank you.
Thank you. Anne Forshey.
Yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead.
Aloha, Chair Yamane and members of the committee. I would like to stand on my testimony provided earlier, but I would also like to just kind of comment. Mr. Bowman spoke to, and I'm sure the Department of Health and Hawakale Corporation can speak to the science, the quality of the air, water, and land at the lagoon. I just want to articulate for one moment how important it is to our community. It's more than a swimming pool, more than a lagoon, more than a body of water. It's really become a nexus for our community. We have children learning to swim, learning to paddleboard, learning to kayak. We have beautiful floats offshore that the children kayak to, paddle to. We've seen parents introduce their babes to the water in this very calm, surf-free setting. We've also had homeschoolers leverage the lagoon for their physical education curriculum. We've celebrated birthdays, holidays, pauhana, get-togethers. It's really become an important entity for the community. And not a week goes by where members of the community reach out to me and ask where we are on this issue. And so I'd like to include my support for House Bill 104. And I also want to express my thanks to you and the members of your committee for addressing this concern. I know you have a full agenda, and I wish you the best today. Aloha.
Okay, thank you. We have testimony submitted by Larry Provost in support, Karen Scott in support, John McKenna in support, and a whole list that signed petition. Members, any questions? Okay, seeing none, moving on to HB 285 relating to insurance. Would like to call up the insurance commissioner.
Good morning, Chair, members of the committee. You have our written testimony. We are offering comments. We do suggest a legislative auditor's report to be done at least on part of the proposal, and we will be available for any questions or comments. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay. HMSA.
Hi, this is Lindsay Garcia from HMSA for Matt Sasaki. We stand on our testimony and are available for comments. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, Kaiser Permanente.
Hi, Good morning, Chair. John Kiritsu for Kaiser Permanente. We stand on our testimony requesting an audit.
Okay, thank you. Can I have the LGBT caucus of the Democratic Party, Mr. Galohue? Is he on? Okay. If you do jump on, let me know before the end of the testifying portion. Okay. Hawaii Health and Harm Reduction Center, the Kua'ana project. Okay. In support, Brianna Zoe.
Hi, I'm here. Can I get a mic check?
We can hear you. Please proceed.
Hooray. Okay, sorry. I get very nervous in front of crowds, but thanks very much for giving me the chance to speak my mind here. My name is Bree, and my pronouns are she, her, and I am a transgender individual, and I fully support this measure because I think it's appalling we currently let big health insurance companies essentially decide what services are medically necessary and not for transgender individuals, just like myself. I hear the feedback and I've read the testimony about costs, we should do studies, yada, yada, yada. A lot of insurance companies say that the stuff we cover today, or the stuff that they don't cover rather, is grounded in medical literature, clinical literature. It's based on whatever, standards of care by certain organizations. To all those arguments, I say baloney, whether it be costs or medical necessity based in literature. All of that stuff I think is nonsense. I think the literature and the standards of care through a lot of these organizations the insurance companies fall on is pretty outdated. It's not really in sync with reality. And honestly, costs, look at how much the system we have today costs already. Yes, it would add more costs to cover more services, but honestly, in my mind, I don't have a dollar number because I'm just an average person. It is so negligible, I would assume that it shouldn't even be a factor. You know, and I think what really gets me, and I'm going to try to keep this short and not repeat myself, is that I find it really irritating that these big insurance companies essentially have that freedom to say what is necessary and what is not. Personally, it is so devastating, and I don't think the insurance companies really know when they tell people like me that we don't think this service is medically necessary. We don't think you need this. We don't think you need that. It is devastating. It is devastating, and it makes people like me.
Can you please wrap it up?
Sure. It really makes people like me feel really crappy and like we're not seen. I'm tired of being not seen and not heard.
Okay. Again, just in case we had some technical difficulties earlier, the testimony time frame is 2 minutes. You will be warned with the yellow card to wrap up your sentence. Then we will be moving on. Yeah, so just in case that was not clear with the audio problem, and then the chair would request that those that are doing this professionally, that we know that your testimony has been submitted. Okay. Next up is Thaddeus Pham.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. Just making sure you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Great. Thanks for this opportunity to make comments. So I actually urge us to proceed with the bill as written, and I highly oppose this audit. I think that with state funds as they are, there's not funding to perform such audit effectively, killing this bill. As stated in my testimony, there's data that shows that there's higher disparities among trans people in Hawaii, including suicidality, mental health, and substance use issues. So really, this is to ensure that people in our communities who are local people get the services that are required and essential as recommended by standards of care that Brianna mentioned. I'm here for any questions, but again, I urge you to pass the bill as written without this audit, and I appreciate your time. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Is there someone from Lavender Clinic?
Yes, hello. My name is Stephanie McHale. I am the Director of Operations for the Lavender Clinic. Our clinical director, Renee Rumler, is unable to be with us, but she was the one who submitted our written testimony. I wanted to add to the written testimony that she submitted that I, as a transgender individual, fully support this measure. I don't believe that the measure necessarily goes far enough because I did see some caveats in the measure. However, I understand that proceeding as written without amendments, even the amendments that we suggested in our written testimony, is probably the fastest way to relieve some of the severe burden that is happening to the gender diverse and transgender community in Hawaii. Now, there's precedent in other states, there's precedent in lawsuits. Large insurance companies can be assured that they will be sued if they don't change soon. So this measure is one way to begin helping them find the path of least cost, actually, because lawsuits are very expensive. And not only are lawsuits very expensive, but so too are the social and healthcare and financial costs associated with leaving this community without the support that we desperately need. I personally have had 2 of the medical interventions that are on the list proposed in this bill. And I bring that up partially because I had the privilege to pay out of pocket, which is a privilege that most people in my community don't have. And the reason that I had that privilege was because I chose to hide my identity and have my parents pay for college and everything and get financially situated. Not everyone has that privilege. My suicidality wasn't quite severe enough to end my life before I chose to have my surgeries in 2013. And I paid $30,000 out of pocket for just one of the 2 procedures I mentioned. The other reason that I mentioned that I had 2 procedures specifically is because I don't want people to think that we're just trying to get every last dime out of the insurance companies. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, members, we have testimony in the record from the Hawaii Civil Rights Commission in support, Malama Ikeola, Hawaii Center. Also Hawaii Civil Rights Commission in support. AF Firm Hawaii in support, Office of Hawaiian Affairs in support, Pride at Work in support, Planned Parenthood in support, and number of individuals all in support, which will be introduced in the record. Members, any questions? Vice Chair?
Hi, my question is for Thaddeus Pam, please. You still
Go
there?
ahead. Yeah, I'm here.
Hi, Thaddeus. You mentioned in your testimony that this is similar to, this just, so you say that this just clarifies Act 135 of 2016, correct?
Right, the previous bill that was passed, yes.
Okay. Are there any other states doing this?
Yeah, actually, beginning in 2017, transgender exclusions were prohibited in most types of health insurance in all states because of federal law. So there are other states who are already doing this. There are 24 states and the District of Columbia explicitly prohibit transgender exclusions.
So if there's a federal law, then what's the purpose of this law?
So the purpose of this law is, even though we did have that great bill that passed in 2016, in terms of implementation, we're continuing to hear from our community members that they're experiencing barriers to these essential services that are recommended by the standards of care. So this is just to really clarify and state these procedures that are essential for transgender people, and also to provide education and support for people who are going through this process.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else have questions? Okay, the chair's questions for Insurance Commissioner. Commissioner.
Yes, Chair.
Okay, thank you. You know, in the in our in your testimony, you refer to the HRS's 432E and 431 regarding the standards of medical necessity and the necessity for any treatment to be determined. That's reflected in the state law. Is that your position?
Yeah, that is reflected in Hawaii's Patients Bill of Rights 432E. Yeah.
Okay, so then it's the position of the Insurance Commissioner then that in order to look at mandating this to the insurance providers, that it would be required under state law to look at the, I guess, is it the insurance policy, contract, plan, the provisions, and the cost impact?
Correct.
Okay, so this cannot, in your opinion, that needs to be done prior in order to follow the letter of the law?
I think that would be the safest thing to do, given the federal law with ACA and the deferral. We are uncertain if that deferral will come into play or not. So to be safe, I would say we should look at that auditor's report, do that report, and at a minimum, that'll provide us some kind of idea of what kind of costs we're looking at.
Okay, and then is that a requirement that CMS has and which regarding the impacts on services that you would need to do that request and part of that request would require that information?
Yeah, I mean, the federal law says that if it's a new mandate, then the insurer can request the state to defray the cost of that mandate.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
Moving on to HB 302 relating to advanced practice registered nurses, Department of Taxation.
Yes, Chair. Jonathan White on behalf of the Director of Tax. We'll stand on our written testimony, providing comments. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Okay. Hawaii State Center for Nursing.
Aloha, this is Laura Reichart, Director of the Hawaii State Center for Nursing. Thank you for hearing this measure. This Hawaii State Center for Nursing stands on our written testimony and strong support and also makes ourselves available should you have any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, members, to note that we have testimony from the Board of Nursing, DCCA, that providing comments. Hawaii American Nurses Association in support, Hawaii Association of Professional Nurses in support, Hawaii Psychological Legislative Committee in support, late testimony from Queens Health Systems in support, and Brandon Friedman in support. Members, any questions? Okay, seeing none, moving on to HB 384 relating to telehealth. Insurance Commissioner.
Chair, members of the committee, you have our written testimony and we will be available for comments and questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have testimony of HMSA.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. This is Matt Sasaki from HMSA. We stand on our written testimony and remain available for any questions.
Okay, thank you. We have AARP.
Good morning, Chair. This is Audrey Suga Nakagawa, Advocacy Director for AARP Hawaii. We stand in support of this measure. We know that telehealth is becoming a very valuable and more of a common practice among our many patients. And we believe that this service should be reimbursed by both public and private insurance if it's something that would be also reimbursable for an in-person visit. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Hawaii Association, Hawaii Association of Behavior Analysts.
Hi, good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, and committee members. My name is Roxanne Bristol, and I'm the president of the Hawaii Association for Behavior Analysts, and we stand in support for this measure. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Okay, to note that we have testimony provided by Department of Health with comments. Hawaii Disability Rights Center in support, HPCA in support, Hawaii Association of Professional Nurses in support, ACOG support, Hawaii Psychological Association in support, and numerous individuals all in support providing testimony. Members, any questions? Okay, the chair has questions for DCCA, Insurance Commissioner.
Yes, Chair.
Okay. This telehealth bill goes quite comprehensive farther than the previous telehealth bills that we've had before the committee. Yeah.
Yes.
And there has been some discussion regarding the way the bill could be interpreted. What is the interpretation of the commission on this version of the defining telehealth during a public emergency?
Well, under the public emergency, the current public emergency, I think it includes telephone coverage. So it includes if the provider contacts the patient via telephone. I think currently the statute did not include that, but with the public emergency, that was one of the things that it included.
Okay. Yeah, okay, because there's reference in this measure regarding like the health maintenance organizations. Yeah. Would that trigger then a discussion by all that you would have to do with all the providers? Because it would mandate stuff like co-payment relief and impose organizational and lifetime benefit discussions?
It could, but we haven't seen anyone, and the health plans can correct me, but on the telehealth services, usually the charges to the insured are none or less than an in-person visit.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Moving on. HB 1106 relating to health, Department of Human Services.
Morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Kathy Betts, Director for the Department of Human Services. We'll stand on our written testimony, but we're available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Director. Okay, Hawaii Health Information Exchange.
Morning, Chair Yamane and committee members. We submitted testimony supporting this bill and we rest on our testimony, and I'll be able to answer questions from any of the committee members. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Queens Health Systems.
Aloha, Chair Yamane. Queens will stand on our written testimony and available for comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Pacific Radiation Oncology.
Hi, Chair and the committee. Thank you for allowing me to talk. I stand by my written testimony saying that the information shared will help patients in our community.
Thank you. Okay, and a note to everyone that we do have testimonies provided by the Attorney General, provided comments, HMSA in support, Hawaii Association of Hawaii provide comments, Hawaii Data Collaborative in support, Hawaii Pacific Health provided comments, Hawaii Primary Care Association in support, and Pacific Radiation Oncology, already testified in support. Center, the Cancer Center of Hawaii in support. Members, do you have any questions? Okay. The chair has a quick question for, let's see, who should I give this to? Is for Hawaii Health Information Exchange.
Yes, Chair.
Okay, so I know there was question in the testimony by a number of providers that the language was quite broad in its scope. So my understanding is the information you requesting is specific to what is currently requested through HIPAA. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes, we have very strong legal policy committee, actually make up of the compliance officers from our the health systems, health plan, and even Department of Health. And we always, are very careful about the data that is going to be exchanged through HHIE. And then, of course, we abide by the law for the HIPAA, and then what are allowable And then also the Cures Act, 21st Century Cures Act, they have advanced what is called the USCDI version 1, and in there are some specifics about the data that needs to be shared legally and that can be shared legally, and we will definitely abide by those provisions.
Okay. So the intention with HHIE and this bill was for you guys to get the information to share, and however, the concerns about the protection of private information, all those securities are in place?
That's correct.
Okay, and you guys will work with the providers to ensure that their concerns regarding the what information is being requested is appropriate?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Moving on to HB 1284 relating to the Department of Human Services. Department of Human Services.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, Kathy Betts for DHS. We submitted written testimony. While we appreciate the intent in improving government efficiency, we do respectfully oppose the measure as written, and you have our written testimony, and I'm available for any questions if you have any.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Hawaii State Public Charter School Commission. Okay. Okay. Sure. All right. Department of, okay, I have two Department of Human Services here. I have also another one, BESD.
Hi, Chair Yamani, this is Brian Donahoe, and as Director Betts mentioned, we stand on our written testimony, and I'll be available for any questions that are specific to the division. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Members, any questions? That's all the testimonies provided. Any questions, members? Okay, the chair has a question for the director. Director, we've been working on this, right, as a vehicle. Is it correct then to say that we have struck there's language being proposed to address only the MedQuest division and its restructuring?
Yes, Chair, that is correct. We
And
did
that-
draft language attached to our testimony as well.
Okay, good. And that language is something that the department has been working on for over a year and a half or so?
Correct, correct.
Okay, so yeah, the chair in his exuberance to try to overly combine things based on definition, yes, combined a lot of sections. So I know it caused your leadership some heartache. So the chair concedes that maybe we should focus on that division. So thank you. Okay.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to HB 722 relating to human trafficking. Attorney Generals.
Aloha, Deputy Attorney General Fashad Tawebi, and I'm the State Human Trafficking Coordinator. Our department worked with Representative Ichiyama on this bill prior to it being finalized, and this issue is a top priority for General Connors and our department, and we believe codifying the program is going to be important to long-term sustained leadership in this space. So we support the bill, and I'm available for any questions.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the judiciary.
Good morning, Chair Yamani and the committee. My name is Jasmine Mamukai. I'm the director of the Children's Justice Centers of Hawaii. The judiciary stands on its written testimony in strong support of HB 722 related to human trafficking, and I'm available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Nice seeing you again. Department of Human Services.
Morning again, Chair. Kathy Betts for DHS. We'll stand on our written testimony providing comments, and we defer to the Attorney General's office. Thank you.
Thank you. Office of the Public Defender.
Aloha, Deputy Public Defender Darcia Forrester. We support the bill and we will stand on our written testimony. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. So just so you know, members, we do have testimony submitted by Tracy Ryan in support, Chris Caulfield in support, Dwayne Sosa in support. Members, any questions? Yes, right. Representative.
Thank you, Chair. I have some questions for the AG's office. Farshad.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. I really appreciate this measure. I was a service provider for survivors of sex trafficking for many years, and I really, really do appreciate this. But I guess I want to make sure that if this bill moves forward and we are able to continue to create this statewide anti-trafficking program, that it applies to as many victims as possible. And right now, currently in the bill's definition of human trafficking, it's only references federal laws. So I guess my question would, do you folks be open to including and would the chair be open to including our state's human trafficking statutes as well, which would be labor trafficking under Part 8 of Chapter 707 and sex trafficking under Section 712 to 1202, as well as promoting prostitution under Section 712 to 1203, and solicitation of a minor for prostitution under Section 712 to 1209. I guess for me, that would really ensure that the program applies to as many victims as possible. And my second question is that this bill calls for a comprehensive report from the AG's office on our state's anti-trafficking response. I guess including the development of a training program for educators and for other professionals and best practices used to serve victims. To what extent will service providers be consulted in the creation of this report? Since it seems to encompass a lot of, I guess, activities that service providers are currently performing. And since service providers have unique knowledge of the dynamics of exploitation in our communities.
Okay, as to the definition, we use the federal definition because I think it is the most expansive. So it would include all the forms of trafficking and exploitation that you mentioned. We didn't want to define it by criminal laws, and so we used the federal definition. So the intent is to include labor trafficking, exploitation of both adults and children. In regards to the legislative reports, I think we saw it as a way that the state could publish something both for the legislature and the community that would do kind of a comprehensive assessment and try and collect and identify the data that is available. So the first report for next session would be specifically to child sexual exploitation. And then the following year would be more expansive into broader sex, labor trafficking, exploitation of adults. And then in terms of the training, I think, we're just getting this program started. I started in this position in May. And so, we're working with limited resources, but I think the overall scope of the program is more to bring the parties together. So to answer your question, yes, we would be consulting and organizing with all the other stakeholders, including service providers. And I think the goal with education would just be to have something consistent across the state so we don't have so many separate entities with different curriculum. So hopefully that answered all your questions.
My last question, Rashad, is that this bill doesn't have any appropriations. So can you folks, to your extent, do this, everything that's called for in this proposal without any additional funding?
Ideally, yeah, we'd love to have additional funding, but we understand, the current reality. And so General Connors brought me in this role to start it. And so I think everything that we outlined in the statute or in the bill that we worked with Representative Ichiyama, I'm comfortable taking on at this time.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The chair has questions for Attorney General. So in light of the discussion that we just had with Representative Capella, you're currently in that role, right?
Correct.
So the establishment of a coordinator is for title purposes only, or like if that's part of the priorities for the Attorney General, all these things can be done currently.
Yes, I think there's value though in codifying it. So if we're looking at getting, federal grants and building the program as we move forward, I think, we'd like this to be a long-term program that outlives, current administration. And we just believe that the Attorney General's leadership in this space is important. So we don't want it to be something that's temporary. And I think the statute, again, would help solidify that for the long term.
So, but codifying doesn't mean we need to codify the position and it being a new program, right? The codification for you to move forward would be that this is a service and all these purviews would be under the Attorney General. Isn't that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so the language in regards to specifically for a coordinator as well as a new program, which would reflect, it would be interpreted as something starting new. You just, for your purposes, for the Attorney General to codify the language, you just need the other things in the bill to make sure that that is your purview. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Members, any other additional questions? Okay, moving on to HB 188, relating to the room confinement of children at the detention and shelter facilities. Call up the State of Hawaii Judiciary.
Good morning, Chair Yamane, Vice Chair Tam, and members of the committee. I'm Carol Matsuoka on behalf of the Hawaii State Judiciary. The judiciary strongly supports this measure, and we stand on our written testimony, and I will remain available to answer questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Office of the Public Defender.
Aloha. The Office of the Public Defender stands on its written testimony in support. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hawaii Disability Rights Center. Okay, they provide testimony in support. ACLU of Hawaii.
Good morning, Chair, members of the committee. My name is Hope Krippelman. I'm the Legal and Legislative Fellow at the ACLU of Hawaii. Thank you for the opportunity to testify on this. The ACLU of Hawaii strongly supports this bill with 2 suggested amendments. The ACLU has received reports in the past of the misuse and overuse of juvenile solitary in our state. Examples include one child of Pacific Islander descent who was held in confinement on the basis of solely verbal outbursts for 31 days straight, and a child who was held in solitary for 7 days solely because she had head lice. And during this time, her suicidal ideation returned. The research is clear that solitary confinement is actually actively harmful. It forces children to spend 22 to 23 hours a day alone with no source of social interaction or stimulation for days and even weeks on end. It leads to and exacerbates depression, anxiety, psychological and developmental issues. Many children in juvenile detention facilities already suffer from mental illnesses, and isolation not only fails to address the underlying causes of these problems, it actually leads to more harm. One study found that more than half of all suicides in juvenile facilities occurred when young people were held in isolation. Solitary confinement is also counterproductive. It does not work to deter violence. Research shows that extreme isolation actually causes increased antisocial behaviors and aggressive tendencies. And several jurisdictions that have reduced the use of solitary witnessed a decrease in prison violence. This bill effectively bans the use of room confinement for juveniles, except in limited circumstances, and it brings Hawaii into alignment with the Federal First Step Act. We've offered some amendments that we think would further strengthen this bill, and we would be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, members, any questions? Okay, Vice Chair.
Hi, my question is for the judiciary, Matsuoka, Carol Matsuoka.
Hi. Thank you. I'm ready to.
Yes, hi. So what is the current law, or is there a current limit for the amount of hours a minor can be held in solitary confinement?
Not in Hawaii state statutes, there is not any current limits, although we do have policy and practice in place at the juvenile detention facility. And we're limiting it to 4 hours. With this measure, we will again limit it to 3 hours.
Okay, thank you.
That's it. Okay, good. Okay, moving on to HB 202 relating to expungement. Governor's Coordinator on Homelessness.
Good morning, Chair. Scott Morishige, Governor's Coordinator on Homelessness. Stand on my testimony supporting the intent and offering comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Office of the Public Defender.
Aloha, Chair Yamane, Deputy Public Defender Darcia Forrester. The Office of the Public Defender supports this measure and any efforts to provide incentives to and a path out of homelessness. For many who find themselves without safe shelter and who are truly struggling, additionally find themselves facing mounting court citations and court hearings, which compound. Excuse me. Trying to manage your survival on the streets together with managing all your court hearings becomes an almost impossible situation for people who are really struggling and trying to figure out a way out of homelessness. We believe this measure would be essential to help them out and help them maintain permanent housing and stay off the streets and out of the system. Thank you very much for the opportunity to testify.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to Office of Hawaiian Affairs.
Aloha, Sterling Wong for the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. We stand in strong support of our written testimony and will be available for comments and questions. Mahalo nui.
Thank you. Community Alliance on Prisons. Okay. ACLU of Hawaii.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Mandy Fernandez on behalf of the American Civil Liberties Union of Hawaii will stand on our written testimony offering support of this measure with one suggested amendment to make expungement automatic. We're happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. I saw the face of the Community Alliance on Prisons.
Aloha. Thank you so much, Chair Yamane, and welcome Vice Chair Tam and members of the committee. Kat Brady testifying on behalf of Community Alliance on Prisons in strong support of this measure. You know, this bill would really help lots of people who live unsheltered, some of whom have been released from incarceration. And what criminal records do, it's more digital punishment after a person has actually served their time. Other states have actually embraced this. New Mexico, Pennsylvania, Utah, New Jersey, and California, because they realize that saddling somebody with a criminal record affects their economic mobility, impacts the tax base, and just tears apart families. So we really support this bill, and thank you so much for hearing it. Aloha.
Thank you. Retail Merchants of Hawaii. Okay. Elizabeth Wiggins. Okay. Last chance for any of those two. All right. Okay. So members and audience, there's a number of testimonies provided on this measure. State of Hawaii Judiciary provided comments. Attorney Generals in opposition. County of Kauai Office of the Prosecuting Attorney in support. Kupuna for Mo'opuna support. IHS, which is the Institute of Human Services, in support. Rock Your Cause in support. Hawaii Appleseed in support. ABC Stores in opposition. Neighborhood Place in support. And we have a number of individual testimonies, as well as late testimony from the Hawaii State Commission on the Status of Women, all in support, except for opposition by Diano Bethel. Members, any questions? Okay, Representative Ward.
Thank you, Chair. Kat Brady, are you still there? Kat? Oh, you're
Aloha.
okay, you were muted. Okay, Kat, thank you for all you do for prisoners. And if anybody knows the way prisoners are, behave, or should be treated, you do. So my question is this. On page 5 in the testimony, actually, no, in the bill on page 5, the last 7 to 10 words in the bill read as follows. I'm willing to seek financial or mental health counseling opportunities if available, if financial or mental health challenges may contribute to my becoming or remaining homeless. Do you think anybody's really going to choose that? It's so passive. Shouldn't we be a little bit more, look, if you want your thing expunged, go get some mental health. A bit more tough love rather than, this is a nice, but it looks like a throwaway. I just wanted to get your opinion on that because this looked to me like a poison pill in this very otherwise good bill. Gives people an option.
Well, I think if people who are going for expungement, they realize that criminal records are a huge barrier. So to me, it's if somebody has been experiencing homelessness and needs services, we should be providing those services to that person.
Of course, but the bill only says, I am willing to do this. It doesn't say I'm going to do it. So in other words, they get expungement, but we don't get any corrective mental or financial, what's the word, rectification, remediation, mitigation.
Well, you know, if you look at the testimony that I wrote, I did research and there's empirical evidence that shows that people who have received expungements for their records, their recidivism rate is really, really low. So we need to follow the science rather than the emotion. This is what the data show.
Yeah, the science is that so many of these people are out of their mind, not even able to help themselves. So, I mean, for those who are able to help themselves, I agree with you. But in terms of what we got a homeless population that keeps growing and growing. And this is a chance to get them treated. And that's why it's a good bill. Thank you, Kat. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Anybody else have questions? I will ask Mr. Morishige this question because unfortunately, the Attorney General is not on. Mr. Morishige?
Thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you. The Attorney General highlighted some of the concerns about the language, specifically on the issue of expungement. The question that the chair has is, since we don't classify anybody by ownership or renting or if they have a place of residence, how will this be used to expunge an individual's record? Do they just claim to be homeless and then this expungement then would be in consideration?
So my understanding is that the bill would try to target offenses related to someone's homeless status. And in my testimony, it suggests looking at similar programs such as the Community Outreach Court or the Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion Program, which target certain offenses, but don't necessarily limit those programs exclusively to homeless individuals. And those would be offenses such as, sit live violations, park closure violations.
So that's the offenses. I'm not talking about the offenses. I'm talking about when this is triggered to be used by an individual during the criminal, the process, right? So, like I said, already, let's say, because my understanding, this will include things like theft, car theft, burglary, criminal property damage, criminal trespassing. An example given is if somebody is illegally trespassing on state or private property, burns down their residence. How does the judiciary or law enforcement, put this in for consideration regarding the use of homelessness to expunge their record? Is it based off of the person saying that they're homeless and that triggers this, or when does it trigger?
So I apologize, Chair. I'm not sure if I'm able to answer that question, but again, In my testimony, I suggested looking at similar programs to see if there's a way to not necessarily limit specifically to people who are homeless, but to basically trigger it by offense. So if you have somebody who has a record of convictions for certain types of offenses that fall within a defined category, that might trigger it, because I believe that's the mechanism that the community outreach court program utilizes. But I would have to defer to someone more directly involved with that, who knows the specifics.
Because the Attorney General does note that because this bill does not specify the process, that it's not clear, right? When do the courts determine that, and how is somebody, how will that be determined? So that means anybody who commits those identified crimes, would that then be a question asked to that individual as if they're homeless, and then that would trigger that discussion? Yeah, that's fine, but
again, Chair, I think my testimony was specifically comments. I support the intent. As many others testified, I believe that if you're able to expunge certain offenses, it removes barriers that may prevent people from accessing housing or employment. I think if this bill does proceed, there does need to be further discussion with the Attorney Generals and prosecutors to understand the mechanisms, again, that might be used in similar programs like the Community Outreach Court.
Right. No, but that community outreach court is already a court process, right? In which there is a process. This then it would allow then that anybody, I guess the way it's interpreted, anybody committing those offenses could then claim, using the term homeless at the time of the offense, then or maybe even thereafter, that they could get the records expunged?
I think as it's currently drafted, I think that is a concern. And so, if the measure proceeds, I think tightening the language and getting input again from the law enforcement agencies and, AGs and prosecutors might help with, addressing some of those concerns.
Okay, I know Kat Brady wanted to interject.
Well, I just wanted to say that I was working with intake services, and they provided data for all the people who were houseless at the time of arrest for 2020. And that came out to about 40% of the population. So I just wanted to add that's data from the Department of Public
But that's not
Safety.
the question of the chair. The chair is then, if you have 100 individuals that commit, let's say, an arson or a crime against a home or an individual that falls under this category, can all of them claim that they were homeless and then have their records expunged?
If they were arrested at the time they were houseless, that's where those numbers, the 40% number, comes from.
All right,
I think you're talking about something immediate.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to HB 1225, relating to digital health records. Well, sorry, let me flip my pages. So the Attorney General provided comments. Department of Health.
Hello.
Hey, Department of Health.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, please proceed.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chairs, and members of the committee for the opportunity to testify today on behalf of the Department of Health and the Director. We are standing on our written comments, providing comment on this bill, and are available for questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the Department of Human Services.
Morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, Kathy Betts for DHS. We will stand on our written testimony, respectfully opposing the measure as currently written, and we're available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Hawaii Health Information Exchange.
Hi, good morning, Chair and committee members. We HHIE submitted testimony in support of the bill earlier last week, but then after careful consideration and discussion with our stakeholders, we believe now that this bill should be deferred for additional consideration and review, so that it can be perhaps like additional languages added that would provide the appropriate safeguard and address some of the issues that were expressed that I've heard from our participants, HHIE's stakeholders. So thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Queens Health Systems.
Chair Yamani, J.C. Mike Allen for Queens Health Systems. We will stand on our written testimony, supporting the intent. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Legacy of Life. No. Legacy of Life. No. Leonard. Okay. Kehaulani Trita Tehotu. Okay. Both in opposition. Okay. Victoria Ng. Okay. In opposition, members to note that there was testimony provided by Hawaii Pacific Health in support, Hawaii Primary Care Association in support, National Vaccine Information Center in opposition, pediatric nurse practitioners in support, First Vitals Health and Wellness in support, and we have a number of individuals, and late testimony from the Hawaii County Assembly in opposition, Aloha Freedom Coalition in opposition, Legacy of Life in opposition, and a whole slew of individual testimony in opposition. Members, any questions? Okay, seeing none. Chair has a quick question for Hawaii Health Information Exchange.
Yes, Chair.
Okay, so we've been working with you on the measure earlier on the agenda regarding the exchange of information. Is that information requests measure address the concerns or the requests of additional information sharing that would make HHIE more effective?
Yes, Chair.
Okay. All right. Oh, that was easy. Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to HB 227 relating to health. I am confident Department of Health is going to speak on this, but let me double check. Department of Health.
Good morning, Chair. Yes, your confidence is fulfilled. This is Keith Ridley on behalf of the Director of Health. We stand on a written testimony in support of this bill, and I just wanted to point out that we did ask for additional amendments which are contained in our testimony, and we do also support the deletion of the exclusion language, and we're available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. The Alliance of Professional Primary Care Administrators.
Present, sir.
Okay, please proceed.
I stand on my testimony in support of the bill, sir.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, got quite all of you that submitted testimony from that organization, all in support. We have Adult Foster Care Association. Maribel Tan. Okay, and support Department of Human Services, SSD Division. Deputy. Okay, and provided comments. Members on those that provided testimony is again a number of people from the Alliance of Professional Primary Care Administrators, all in support. Department of Human Services provided comments. The deputy provided comments, not in support. We have late testimony from Lynette Gaylord in support, and Laila Fojihina in support. Members, any questions? Okay, the chair has a quick question for Department of Health.
Yes, Chair.
Okay, sir. So just to double check, we wanted to highlight the fact that this would then clarify the issue of the land, your ability to then provide and conduct unannounced and I guess anytime inspections of care home, those care homes and other health related facilities.
Yes, Chair, that's correct. The current statute already allows us to do unannounced inspections and investigations. But further clarification on the investigations being conducted at any time of the day would be very helpful. Thank you.
Okay, because the chair is aware through both examples and anecdotal experience in which some of these facilities will then, during the workday, Monday through Friday, up until 4:30, conduct themselves in an appropriate manner. However, nights and weekends conduct themselves in a very different manner. For example, having individuals do illegal drugs on the streets and conducting them, doing terroristic, threatening type behavior to residents. Those types of behaviors would fall under your jurisdiction to inspect?
Yes, they would.
Okay. So you guys are dealt with by complaint process. Who complains, the individual or the departments?
A variety of individuals will submit complaints. They can come from other state departments. We receive referrals and complaints from the Department of Human Services, for example, Adult Protective Services. But the bulk of the complaints that we receive are from the community. Maybe neighbors of the house in question, or they may be other licensed residential care home operators who are aware of a referral, perhaps, of an individual to that unlicensed home. So that's the bulk, really, of the complaints that we receive.
Okay. Can I give you a real life example? We have a home that would have a DHS child placement and an adult handicap placement. Both that single home at times was visibly seen having 11 plus adults plus 3 children. Concerns about it running at one time, an unlicensed daycare program involved with some potential other behaviors, inappropriate behaviors. Who is supposed to be one monitoring that home for certification and continued conduct? Is it DHS or DOH or you?
There may be overlapping responsibilities. There may even be overlapping responsibilities within the Department of Health. We would certainly like to know about it to see whether the care being provided in the home meets the criteria for that would require licensing. If it would not, then we would involve other programs within the Department of Health, perhaps the Behavioral Health Division, or we may refer it to the Department of Human Services.
Okay. And in your investigative process only looks at current licensee holders. What if for past behaviors? Is that something that follows under your purview, or does that go up to CMS?
Well, for the residential care homes, this is they're not covered under CMS, so it would come under the state. And as long as there's a potential that the home may actually be operating illegally as a residential care home, that would come under our purview, and we would do the investigation.
Okay, thank you. That's good to know. I did not know that. I think that would be good for our colleagues to eventually be educated on that, since we've encountered these problems, being physically intimidated by these residents in the community. So thank you. Okay, members, any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, moving on to HB 112 relating to vending facilities. Would like to call Department of Health.
Good morning, Chair Yamani, members of the House Committee. My name is Michelle Chow. I'm representing Clubhouse. The department stands on its testimony in strong support of this measure. I'm available for questions or any questions regarding this measure.
Okay, thank you. Department of Human Services.
Good morning. This is Maureen Bates from the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation, and the department stands on the testimony provided and will stand by for questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the National Federation of the Blind of Hawaii.
Yes, Mr. Chairman and Vice Chair and members of the committee, I'm James Gashel, representing National Federation of the Blind of Hawaii and blind vendors on Oahu and our neighbor islands. And we're very much opposed to this bill. We're definitely not opposed to people with mental illness, that's for sure, but we have to oppose this bill. The state is carrying out the vending facilities program as part of a federal program. And if this bill were to pass, then the benefits of the federal program would be lost to the state. And that would be a loss of money for vending facilities. It would be a loss of vending facility space. It would be a loss of substantial sums of vending machine income now used to support the program. And the state would have to expend resources it doesn't have to support the program. Congress could change the eligibility as to who can participate in this program, but the state, no state can without sacrificing the benefits I mentioned. It would have been a good idea for the proponents of this bill to have talked with us before it was offered as a bill. We might be able to offer constructive suggestions or something like that. And we do participate in the deaf-blind task force, which met, but this bill never came up and hasn't been brought up except in the form of a bill. So we just ask for your consideration and stand on our written testimony, and mahalo for your concern.
Okay, thank you. The Hawaii State Clubhouse Advocacy Coalition. Mr. Teranishi, are you on? Okay. Moving on to number of individuals, Warren Nihipali Jr.
Oh, sorry, I had to unmute. I'm sorry, Representative Yamane. I'm sorry. Okay, so my name is Duran Teranishi, and I'm from the Waipahu Aloha Clubhouse, and I'm part of an advocate of the Hawaii State Clubhouse Advocacy Coalition. And I'm in support of the bill HB 1112. And I believe that this bill impact those in the mental health population in a positive way. This is the bill that I believe is the door so that this population can not only be employed, but further our desire to a more challenging employment. Also, we'll have the opportunity to learn how to manage and, kind of like learn a lot of different things through schooling and the training of the process that it takes. And the key is in the long term, the possibility of for the outside communities to see the potential in this population may offer more opportunities. So what I see is there's only hope and growth in this passing this bill. That's all I got to share.
Okay, thank you. Okay, like, is Warren Nihipali Jr. on? Okay, in support, we have a Gail Stewart. Okay, in support, Flora Patton. Okay, in support,
yes, sorry, I'm here.
Okay.
Okay. Aloha. This is for Bill HB 1112 related to the vending facilities program. I'm strongly in supporting name. My name is Flora Patton. I go to Waipahu Aloha Clubhouse for 11 years. I go to advocacy coalition meetings with all different clubhouse and members. I would like to see this vendors extension bill to pass because us clubhouse members are willing to learn and be successful and to have a good experience and to be good employee. I hope that we also fit in with everyone. Thank you very much for reading my testimony.
Thank you. Is there a Flora Patton?
Sorry, I was
That was Flora. Sorry. Okay. Okay. Sorry. Okay. How about Kelly Kogo?
Aloha kakahiyaka.
Aloha.
Good morning, Chair Yamani, Vice Chair Tam, and Representative Capella, the House of Representatives on this 31st legislature. Thank you for the Committee on Health, Human Services, and Homelessness to listen to my testimony. My name is Kelly Kogo. I'm a member of the Hale'olua Clubhouse in Hilo on the Big Island. I'm a part of the Hawaii Clubhouse Advocacy Coalition, and I'm in support of this bill of HB 1112 on the relating to vending facilities for people with mental illness. I believe that I'm able to be trained and to be just like people with blind vendors, people with blindness or vision impaired. We don't want to take anything away from them, even if they would be able to hire us to work with them, along with them. But yes, and we spoke with DHS and we're working on funding. I really we just want the opportunity like anyone else to work. And we consider ourselves very able. And I thank you so much for this opportunity to listen to me. Mahalo and have a great day.
Thank you. Kyoki Wright.
Good morning, Chair Yamane. I am Kyoki Wright from the Kola Clubhouse. I am in support of Bill 1112. I feel that this bill would be a good vocational goal for me. It'll help me to be a leader and an example for peers in the community. And I look very much forward to partnering with DVR and Ho'opono. I think it would be a beautiful experience. And I think it would be a passing of this bill would be very therapeutic for my recovery. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Virgil Stinnett. Okay.
Hello. Yes. Sorry. Yeah, my name is sorry. there's noise in the background. My name is Virgil Stinnett, and I strongly oppose this bill only because the blind community is such a small community, and we are probably the most highest unemployed group in our country and in this state of employable adults. We're still the highest of unemployed adults. And so for us, for blind people, we have to be, it's obvious we're blind. We're certified that we are blind. The doctors get us to appoint us to go to a rehabilitation services, Ho'opono services for the blind. This act is a federal act and was enacted in '36 because they knew that blind people were disadvantaged. They didn't have opportunities. When a blind person applies, a qualified blind person of any type of job applies, they're always going to be the last one to be chosen, because first thing in the thoughts of folks' mind, just like yourself, is you probably think, well, what does a blind person do? What can a blind person do? And so if you add this, I think it's going to destroy the program because it is federally mandated. And this act, they wouldn't be able to use the funds from the Randolph-Shepard program to build facilities or stuff like that. It would have to come out of state funds, not the federal funds, because it's very specific. And so I think we need to do something for the mental illness program. I think there is a need, but to tack it on to this and then diminish this program, which you have to understand, we are the smallest population of disabilities. So then you add another population of disabled to this program, you are basically shoving the blind aside, because eventually there'll be more folks than blind, and blind, the federal definition of a blind person basically is, the disability is a catastrophic disability. I don't think so, but that's the way the feds look at it. And everybody else, they always think a blind person can't do anything. So, but this program has helped the blind. It has helped me as a blind individual. I've been blind going on 25 years this year, Thanksgiving this year. And so it took me a while, but I've been in this program and it has benefited me. I think sorry.
No. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
We got your testimony. Okay. And Elizabeth Formata.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the legislature of the committee. I am here with me is my husband, Ronald Formata, and who has also provided testimony. And we strongly oppose this bill. If you could allow him to speak for the rest of my time.
Sure. Please proceed.
Aloha and good morning, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chairman, and members of the committee. My name is Ronald Flormata, and I've been a blind vendor for the past 10 years. Before that, Ho'opono tried to help me get a job. Even with my background, a good background, I may say, it was hard. It was really hard to get a job as a blind person. Now here comes the Randolph-Shepard Act, an 84-year-old federal law, which gives opportunity for the blind, visually impaired citizens of the United States. And it's only limited to blind and visually impaired individuals. In Hawaii, 70% of the known 5,000 blind, visually impaired individuals, 70% are unemployed. And of those employed, they go into different fields. There are about 45 blind vendors in Hawaii, and there are so limited number of facilities. With this limited number of facilities, you add other disabilities like mental illness, and you know what's going to happen. It will only add to the competition, and it will diminish a service to the blind. HB 1112 will only do more harm than good to the Randolph-Shepard Act. I believe in the saying, if it's not broken, don't fix it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on to Katie Kime.
Katie.
Okay. Are you okay? All right. In opposition, how about Earl Maeda? All right. Okay, seeing no response, members would like to highlight that we have a number of individuals, the Hawaii State Committee on Blind Vendors in opposition, the Randolph-Shepard Vendors of Hawaii in opposition, and we have a number of individuals providing testimony to the record. The chair would estimate that they are probably equal in support and opposition to this measure. Members, any questions? Representative Ward?
Thank you, Chair. I have a question to two individuals, Mr. Glacial and Gashel and Mr. Stennant. If the data is correct, there's only 45 blind vendor shops.
Hello?
Is-
Yes, can you hear me?
uh, Yes, I'm still asking the question, however. There are 45 blind vendor shops, and this bill kind of exempts probably the majority of those. So does this bill kind of overpromise and not being able to deliver anything? Are there actually any openings?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, or Mr. Ward, thank you very much for your question. This bill couldn't deliver what it promises to deliver. And Hawaii actually, with 45 vending sites and the population that we have, is really good compared to a lot of states on the mainland. And it still requires a substantial expenditure of funds, which we get through vending revenues. Those revenues would be lost because of the federal requirements in the program. And this program would eventually die if we tried to do this. It would take state resources to develop other vending facilities. We want other vending facilities, but the program is set up for people who are blind, and we have blind people waiting for facilities and waiting for training. So 45 is really pretty good. I know it sounds small, but these are great businesses for the people that operate them.
Speaking of the numbers, what are the number of blind individuals in Hawaii versus the number of mentally ill individuals that qualify under this bill?
Don't know about mental illness. The department would have to answer that, but there are 5,000 blind people of working age in Hawaii.
Is the department on the line, Chair? Did the department have?
Which one, DHS or DOH? Probably DHS?
Yeah, DHS, who would know the number of mentally ill qualified under this bill?
DVR division, probably.
Correct. I'll defer to Administrator Maureen Bates, Representative.
Thank you, Darren.
Thank you, Representative Ward. This is Maureen Bates, and Department of Health would be, under the Clubhouse program, would be the purveyor of that information. They have clear data that reflects the funding that they receive as well as the services they provide for the mental health population they're advocating on this bill for. Thank you.
So we don't know, we know there's 5,000 blind vendors, but we don't know how many thousand, if more.
I will look it up right now for you, sir.
Okay, thank you. The other question, Mr. Gasho, is there any place on the mainland that's doing this, that has this, or this precedent somewhere?
Oh, no, nowhere on the mainland does this. And again, but the program, the vending facilities for the blind program exists in every single state. And it is carried out pursuant to the federal law. So every single state is acting as a kind of an agent for the federal government in operating this program. And no other program has combined, mental illness, people with mental illness with this program. Now, Mr. Ward, the state could set up a completely separate employment program to help people with mental illness. And it was also suggested that blind vendors could hire people too, working with this group. Those things could be done, but the way this bill is done, it can't be done this way. Just simply having eligibility for blind and people with mental illness. The other laws that this program has to fit in with just wouldn't enable it.
Yeah, it makes it look like a bit of a turf war that is difficult for us when we want to help both.
Well, sure. We know that. And that's kind of why I said nobody talked to us ahead of time, so we didn't even know it was coming up.
Did the Department of Health find out any numbers yet? Otherwise.
Hi, this is Maureen Bates from the Department of Human Services. And the number that I identified on the database systems was approximately 3.2% of residents in Hawaii are identified with mental health conditions.
So
and that represents over 44,000 individuals. Thank you.
44,000 versus 5,000. Okay, so I can see where they may feel overwhelmed. Last is Mr. Stinnett. Thank you for your comment about what otherwise is a note. You said blind people can't do anything. I want you to know I've been inspired by Helen Keller, the phenomenal developments that she did and the accomplishments. She's a role model for all of us, whether we have sight or not. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you.
Chairman?
Chair has some questions for probably both departments. This seems to be a fight between two very valuable and important causes, right? I know Department of Health, you testified in support. Department of Human Services provided comments. I guess, is there a common ground in regards to how to assist the mental health community without jeopardizing the current program that the DVR program that you currently have? Ms. Bates or Department of Health?
Hey, Kitty. Yeah, whatever.
This is Maureen Bates, but I think Department of Health wanted to speak before I did, so I'll defer to them first.
Okay.
So
Department of Health?
the intent of this bill is to look at facilities that are not filled or that do state buildings that do not have a blind vendor in them. We know there are a number of buildings that don't have that, so we don't want to compete with the blind vendors. What we are looking at doing is maybe occupying a few spaces that currently do not have a blind vendor in them. An example of this might be the Department of Health building located near near Leahi Hospital. We are also looking at a smaller number of folks that were listed. We're looking at people that are currently active with the Adult Mental Health Division or with the clubhouses, which they would gain the support of clubhouses to support them as they move forward in this. And we would also look to helping the members secure funding as they work toward independent employment. So the
Okay, so-
numbers are quite smaller.
Okay, so the current program, and Ms. Bates, maybe you can clarify for me. That in order to be a vendor at a state facility, right? If they give priority, if that's right, to the blind vendors. However, if there is no blind vendor that bid on that use of the property, can the state building then bring in another vendor?
Hi, this is Maureen Bates for DVR, and I just want to say that I don't think we can discriminate against disabilities, different types of disabilities. So I don't think that I can weigh in on whether, somebody, as far as the law is written right now, it's defined that the federal law stipulates that there be federal set-aside facilities set aside for the blind vendors. It also, under the state law that replicated the federal law, stipulates that blind vendors have the set-aside facilities for their vending stands. If the vending stand doesn't exist in that state building, there may be a vending machine there. And if there's no vending machine or no individual in that facility, typically that relates to that there's no profit to be had in that facility. So I think that there's a lot of factors that still need to be researched, because DVR certainly could support any individual with a disability for self-employment, but at some point our funding stops once they've obtained that outcome. And then the job retention really is an aspect that is under the federal law associated with the blind vending program, where they have supports for long-term situations such as this pandemic. They have income to help them sustain their some livelihood, at least their health care and their retirement benefits, and being able to pay their taxes and have the opportunity to reopen. But I don't see that funding in this bill associated with their long-term sustainability of these vending facilities. I hope that answers your question.
A pilot program. So yes, you are correct. Okay, all right. That ends the question portion of our agenda. We will be taking a recess to get quorum till 11:30. Okay, thank you, everybody. Recess. reconvening the Committee on Health, Human Services, and Homelessness for the purposes of decision-making on the Tuesday, February 9th, 2021, 9:30 a.m. agenda. Okay, members, thank you. We want to note that we have a Representative Har online. Okay, so moving on to the first measure, HB 104, relating to pool. Members, the recommendation of the chair is to move this measure forward, only changing the effective date. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, Vice Chair.
Voting on House Bill 104, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair, Vice Chair votes aye. Rep Gates? Aye. Rep Har?
Representative Har, you gotta unmute.
Har.
Sorry, aye.
Okay, thank you.
Rep Capella?
Aye.
Rep Lopresti? Is he on? No. Excused. Rep Nishimoto? Rep Ward? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. And by the way, I wore blue to make sure that the swimming pool was clean for Representative Nishimoto. Okay, moving on. He wore green, so I don't know what kind of pool he swims in. But okay, moving on to HB 285 relating to insurance. Members, the recommendation of the chair is to move this as an HD1. I will let the introducer speak after. The recommendation of the chair is to change the language of the bill to address the issue of asking the auditor to do the analysis as requested and specified in HRS's 23-51. Members, and we will change the effective date to July 1st, 2060. Vice Chair?
Thank you so much, Chair. I think this is a great way moving forward to continue the discussion on this. I thank you for your work on this measure, and I look forward to working with the stakeholders to find a path we can move forward with. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, Vice Chair, please take the vote.
Voting on House Bill 285, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Noting the excused absence of Rep Lopresti, any reservations? Any noes? Chair, recommendation is adopted.
Okay, members, thank you. Moving on to HB 302 relating to advanced practice registered nurses. Members, the recommendation of the chair is to move this measure forward as an HD1. The chair is just going to put in a specific in regards to the mental health portion in reference to APRNs. We're going to put in psychiatric APRNs. That way it's more specified that they have some type of mental health background training. We need to put in some technical amendments and put a 7/1/2060 effective date. Members, any discussion? Okay, seeing none, Vice Chair.
Voting on House Bill 302, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Noting the excused absence of Rep Lopresti, any reservations? Any noes? Chair, recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to HB 384 relating to telehealth. Members, after talking with all the various stakeholders, is the chair's recommendation at this time to defer this measure. Okay, moving on to HB 1106 relating to health. Members, the recommendation of the chair is to move this as an HD1. We will put in clarifying language to address the concerns made by some of the providers that this is specific data associated with the Health Information Portability and Accountability Act to be more clear, to try to address some of the concerns of the scope of the information being requested. We're going to be also putting in some language to try to address some of the concerns of the Attorney General and put a 7/1/2060 effective date. Members, any discussion? Okay, seeing none, Vice Chair.
Voting on House Bill 1106, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Noting the excused absence of Rep Lopresti, any reservations? Any noes? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to HB 1284 relating to the Department of Human Services. Members, the recommendation is chair is working with the director, and I want to appreciate her and her leadership team. The intent of the initial vehicle was to address the request to help us to increase efficiency. However, going through the department and their funding found that they actually have been instituting structural changes for the last 4 to 6 years. So, and to support that, we have language submitted by Department of Human Services to address the analytical data portion of DHS, just in case there is some concern about the status of the Department of Health's health data section. Members, so we will be putting in everything. The language will change to only address the analytical data that falls under Medicaid. Excuse me, the MedQuest program. Okay. Members, any discussion on that? Concerns? Okay. Seeing none, thank you.
Voting on House Bill 1284, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Noting the excused absence of Rep. Lopresti. Members, any reservations? Any noes? Chair recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to HB 722 relating to human trafficking. Members, the recommendation of the chair is to move this as an HD1. Members, in light of the discussion and what the state is currently going through, we will eliminate the specific identification of a coordinator and make that a responsibility under the Attorney General's office as currently stated. They can do that internally through the Attorney General's. And then so that means also references to program shall be changed to services provided by the department. We're going to change the reporting period from 2 years to 1 year. And we're going to be inserting language that Representative Capella was bringing up regarding the definition of the state human trafficking language to make sure that is very clear. Is that correct, Representative? Okay. And then we'll be putting an effective date of July 1st, 2060.
Chair, question.
Representative Ward?
Does the AG's office assure you that they will be able to put this person on full time and really get onto this human trafficking issue full on?
My understanding is when he testified, he's currently doing the role right now. And he from their testimony from the Attorney General, this is of high priority.
Okay, so
And there is no money request in the current bill.
So we've saved some taxpayers' money. Thank you.
Yes, we will. Yeah, there is no money for new program, pilot, or new positions. So this way, this will clearly state that there is no new position, and this is not a pilot program, but an existing service. Okay, thank you. Members, any further discussion? Does that align with you, Representative? Good. Okay, Vice Chair.
Voting on House Bill 722, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Noting the excused absence of Rep. Lopresti, any reservations? Any noes? Chair recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to HB 188 relating to room confinement of children at detention and shelter facilities. Members, the recommendation of the chair is to move this administration bill forward with an effective date change of 7/1/2060. Members, any discussion? Okay, seeing none, Vice Chair.
Voting on House Bill 188, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Noting the excused absence of Rep. Lopresti. Any reservations? Any noes? Chair recommendation is adopted.
Okay, Member Seki, moving on to HB 202 relating to expungement. Members, the recommendation of the chair is after looking at this and meeting with several of the various entities regarding concerns regarding when this would kick in and the unintentional and intentional consequences of this process not being specified in the statute. The recommendation of the chair is to defer this measure at this time. Okay, moving on to HB 381 relating to fair housing, reasonable accommodations. Members, the recommendation of the chair is to move this as an HD1. We'll be changing the effective date to July 1st, 2060, and that is it. Members, any discussion? Okay, seeing none, Vice Chair.
Voting on House Bill 381, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Noting the excused absence of Rep. Lopresti. Any reservations? Any noes? Chair recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to HB 1225 relating to digital health records. Members, recommendation of the chair after talking with the various entities is to defer this measure at this time. Okay, moving on to HB 227 relating to health. Members, the recommendation of the chair is to move this measure forward. Members, the Department of Health offered some amendments, helpful amendments to help clarify some of the language. We will insert that. However, we will also add in regards to health and human service community to be a little bit more clear. Also, the chair would like to highlight that it does state currently a law that this can be done unannounced and outside regular business hours. So we want to make sure that is supported. And we will put in an effective date of July 1st, 2060. Members, any discussion? Okay, seeing none, Vice Chair.
Voting on House Bill 227, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments, noting the excused absence of Rep. Lopresti. Any reservations? Any noes? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, moving on to HB 1112 relating to vending facilities programs. Members, this bill is actually pitting two very important communities against each other. I think there needs to be some discussion. The chair is going to request that DHS and DOH work together to help see if moving forward you can have some mentoring and some support that way. However, after some discussion, moving this measure forward would still cause some tension to potentially escalate. So the recommendation of the chair is to defer this measure at this time. This concludes our hearing. Thank you. And close.